Day 20, All in Faith Challenge. Um, at the beginning of John, chapter 10, we see Jesus talking um, to a group of people, including some Pharisees. And he's talking about being the shepherd and um, leading his flock, and how his sheep know his voice. And um, we call ourselves followers of Christ, and he uses the analogy that we're sheep and that he is the shepherd. And if that's the case, we need to know his voice. We need to know how to hear him. Um, when let's just say you're in a crowd of people, um, and for those of you that have kids, you hear your child scream in and among this group of people. You're going to be able to pick that child's voice out above anybody else's because you're so familiar. It's just, that child's a part of you. If you don't have children, somebody that you care deeply for, you're going to be able to hear their voice above everybody else's because you know them so intimately. And we live in a world of distraction. We live in a world where there are literally hundreds of voices that can swim through our minds each day. We have, how many conversations, if you sat down right now and brainstormed the amount of conversations that were going on in your head, the amount of things that you're trying to check off, you're always having a conversation with yourself. And, so the challenge for us is to calm that, to bring those conversations down to a level where Jesus isn't getting lost in the mix. And really, he should be the conversation we're having. And everything else should kind of revolve around that and flow out of that conversation. Paul talks about praying without ceasing. And I think in a lot of ways, praying without ceasing simply means, having an ongoing dialogue with Jesus and not being afraid to just lay everything at his feet. Because that's how you become intimate. The more that you focus on that voice, the more that you're going to be able to recognize his voice in and amongst the crowd around us in life. Now, how do we do that? How do we know his voice? Well, at the beginning of John 1, it says Jesus is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And Jesus is the Word. And when we read the Bible, and we read about him, and we read the things that he said, those words are living. Those words are, they may have been uttered 2,000 plus years ago, but the truth never changes in them. And as Christians, we have the Holy Spirit inside us, Jesus' Spirit inside of us. And so when we're reading the words that he said 2,000 years ago, when we're reading them today, with the same Spirit inside of us that was in him, it's like math. It's 1 and 1 equals 2. And we read through these words and they become alive to us. And Jesus himself is basically talking to himself in and through us. The trick for us is to simply move aside, like we've talked about recently. Just move aside and let him have the conversation that he wants. So my prayer for you today is that you would hear one voice, even above your own. That you would hear the voice of truth speaking to you, guiding you, leading you, loving you into a deeper, more intimate relationship with himself.